Hi, this is Wendy Carlson, and this is my report for the class, The Biological Basis of Behavior, and it is a report on depression. Clinical depression. It's also known as a major depressive disorder, unipolar disorder, recurrent depression. Clinical depression is a mood disorder. It causes persistent feelings of sadness and loss of interest. It can affect how you think and how you behave, so it can affect you in many, many different areas of the brain. It can lead to a variety of emotions and physical issues. Symptoms of clinical depression include general symptoms are anxiety, apathy, general discontentment, guilt, hopelessness, loss of interest in pleasure in activities, mood swings, and sadness. It affects your sleep because it may cause early awakening, excess sleepiness, insomnia, or restless sleep. The whole body symptoms include excessive hunger, fatigue, loss of appetite, restlessness, weight gain, and weight loss. Behavioral symptoms can be displayed as agitation, excessive crying, irritability, and social isolation. The cognitive symptoms, which I feel are almost just as the most important ones, are lack of concentration, slowness in activity, thoughts of suicide, repeatedly going over and over your thoughts. It is considered by the psychological community as the common cold of the outpatient population, which I believe means it's just very common. 25 million people in the United States meet the criteria for some type of a depressive disorder. Women are 2 times more likely to suffer from depression and anxiety than men, and yet men are 3.5 times more likely to commit suicide in a depressive state. Forms of depression are psychotic depression or depressive psychosis is a major depressive episode accompanied by psychotic symptoms. It occurs when in the context of bipolar disorder or a major depressive disorder. Neurotic depression is a depressive episode in an emotionally unstable person. Postpartum depression is a temporary depression related to pregnancy and childbirth, and it can either be early onset, which they usually call the baby blues, or late onset. Minor depression is a mood disorder that does not meet the criteria for clinical depression, but it does contain at least 2 depressive symptoms lasting up to 2 weeks or more. Seasonal affective disorder is a depression related to the changes in season, generally affecting people from fall to spring. Symptoms include low energy and increasing moodiness, and those behaviors are more intense in the winter months. I know I personally need lots and lots of light and windows, or I get cranky. Biological causes of depression. General biological causes for depression are linked to imbalances of the neurotransmitters serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine. More recent research also includes acetylcholine, glutamate, and what I'm going to just say is gamma, because the second word is like, forget it, as another possible neurotransmitter involved in depression. Serotonin is involved in controlling sleep, aggression, mood, and eating, among other things. Decrease in the production of serotonin can cause people to feel depressed, and sometimes they feel suicidal. Norepinephrine is also found to be low in depressed people, and without norepinephrine, we cannot handle stress effectively. Dopamine controls our sense of pleasure, as well as our desire to seek out rewards. Low levels of dopamine cause fatigue, depression, mood swings, and forgetfulness. Environmental causes of depression. I first went with the lifestyle things that can contribute to the prolong of a depressive episode. Abusing drugs or alcohol, overworking, poor diet, especially with too much caffeine and sugar, lack of exercise, poor sleep, lack of leisure time, and or fun recreational activities. The cause of depression, environmental causes in the chemical sense, is synthetic chemicals, food additives, preservatives, pesticides, hormones, GMO foods, and industrial byproducts. The non-chemical causes of depression are noise pollution, electrical pollution, natural disasters, long-term stress, child abuse, trauma, or loss of a loved one. I believe that I was able to go into chapters 2 and 3, which were the chapters on the brain and the chapters on the neurotransmitters, in order to backtrack through what we learned in the beginning. And I pulled a whole lot of, I don't know, new insight out of these chapters after reading more and more about clinical depression. The brain, which I believe was chapter 2. Since different parts of the brain help regulate mood, memory, and behavior, unbalanced neurotransmitters play a major role in controlling depression. Research has shown that the hippocampus, amygdala, and the thalamus are the three areas that we will look at and that are affected by unbalanced neurotransmitters. The hippocampus is smaller in people who suffer from depression due to the ongoing exposure to stress, the stress hormones, which impair the growth of new nerve cells. So when you're under a constant amount of stress, and I think it's cortisol is what's released, it actually shuts down the growth of new nerve cells. Sluggish production of neurons in this region result in low moods and depression, which improve when the antidepressants increase nerve growth, causing new connections, which is what we know as neurogenesis. It may take a few weeks for the patient to begin to feel better because nerve tissue grows slowly. The thalamus receives most of the sensory input and relays it to the cerebral cortex, where high-level functions such as behavioral reactions, speech, thinking, learning, and movement occur. Slow production of neurotransmitters can contribute to bipolar disorder and depression because the connection from the sensory input and the thalamus can't communicate the difference between what is pleasant and what is unpleasant. The amygdala is part of the limbic system, which is associated with emotions such as anger, pleasure, sorrow, fear, and sexual arousal. Activity is higher in the amygdala when a person suffers from clinical depression or is sad. The amygdala stays activated and stays in that higher place long after the recovery from the depressive episode, which can cause an imbalance in the neurotransmitters. Treatments for clinical depression include medications, the inhibitors, the SSRI, SNRI, antidepressants, tricyclic antidepressants, and MAOI inhibitors. Treatments include therapy, hospitalization, residential treatment, outpatient treatment, and brain stimulation therapies such as ECT and TMS. Oh, the ECT, hang on. The ECT is where there's electric transmissions, electric shocks that are sent through your brain, and the TMS is magnetic waves that are going through your brain to stimulate neuron growth. Okay, so after reading all this, because I wrote this report because I was diagnosed with clinical depression and anxiety disorder when I was 19. And so I was on medication for a very long time, but I have lived the last 7 years of my life with no medication, and I have relied more on changes of diet and exercise and reducing the amount of sugar that I eat. And so I thought, if medicine can produce neurogenesis, then food has to be able to produce neurogenesis. So I found this list, and I was pretty impressed with myself. Basically, the foods that increase neurogenesis are curry, blueberries, omega-3s, green tea, celery, walnuts, crabs, awesome, chickpeas, red meat, brewer's yeast, and cauliflower and broccoli. That's just a small list. I know that there's others as well. Plus there's supplements, and I use a non-THC CBD oil to control my anxiety, and it has worked wonders for me. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. Not bad, right?
No?
Makes sense?
Yeah.